Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar about food justice and emergency food providers. My name is Emily Becker, and before we get started, I just wanted to share some housekeeping items. First, make sure that you're muted. I don't want to hear anybody eating a sandwich. So you should see a little icon next to your name, and you can click on that little microphone or phone icon and it'll put a slash through it and that'll be muted, or you can just go ahead and mute yourself on your phone. Second, if you have a question, use the chat box to type it in. Tracy here at Oregon Food Bank will be fielding your questions, and we'll have a little bit of time after each speaker for questions. If you have any technical problems, also feel free to chat them at us. Third, we'll be sharing links and other pieces of information in the chat box as well, so keep an eye on that. And lastly, after the call, we'll be sending you a survey. Please complete it. It's really helpful information for us, valuable feedback on these calls, and it will take you 1 or 2 minutes. All right, so this webinar is hosted by the Oregon Food Bank and Closing the Hunger Gap. Oregon Food Bank works to eliminate hunger and its root causes. These webinars support our network of FEAST communities. FEAST stands for Food, Education, Agriculture Solutions Together, and is a community-facilitated event that brings together all voices in the community to talk about their food system. Since 2009, we've hosted over 75 FEAST events in Oregon, and it's been replicated in 12 other states. These community conversations have led to an incredible number of initiatives, like reviving granges, starting farmers markets, and community gardens.
If you can hear us, will you chat into the type box? It sounds like maybe some people are having audio difficulties, or maybe no one can hear us. Okay, great, thank you. We're going to keep going, and I will work with those of you who cannot hear on the back end. So, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So we're partnering, Oregon Food Bank is partnering with Closing the Hunger Gap, a network of food banks, anti-hunger advocates, and food justice activists from across North America working to strengthen community food systems. We are building a movement to transform food banks. We encourage food banks to expand their efforts beyond food assistance toward community-based empowerment initiatives that effectively collaborate with broader community food security work. We believe that food banks are uniquely positioned to be hubs for diverse community food security strategies that allow participants to gain the skills, resources, and social capital to increase their own food security and become leaders in their communities. In September, Oregon Food Bank is going to host a national conference called Closing the Hunger Gap, Cultivating Food Justice. That event is September 13th through 16th in Portland, Oregon. We're expecting over 500 attendees, and it'll be a vibrant, diverse, inspiring event. And we hope to see you all there. Please check out our website, thehungergap.org, for more information on that. As we planned our call today to help we planned this call today to help emergency food providers and our allies develop an understanding of what food justice is and how we can support food justice efforts. First, we'll outline what food justice means and then hear how 2 organizations use it to inform their work. Our speakers are Jess Powers, Shannon Kogan, and Mireille Massac. Jess Powers is a writer and works at Why Hunger, an organization based in New York City that helps support grassroots organizations working on food justice and building a movement to end hunger and poverty. She produced capacity-building guides on nutrition education and food sourcing for emergency food providers and is working on articles on the right to food and charity in the United States. Shannon Kogan is immersed in every aspect of food justice as a year-long Jesuit volunteer with Sisters of the Road, a community space and cafe in Portland, Oregon. She facilitates conversations, creates messaging, and is hosting the first season of Sisters in-house farm stand. Mireille Massac is the Community Relations Manager of Child Development Support Corporation, a nonprofit organization in Brooklyn, New York, that provides a wide range of services to the community, helping families and individuals to become self-sufficient and self-reliant. Ms. Massac's responsibilities include advocating for access to healthy food for pantry clients, promoting locally grown sustainable agriculture, and managing the first indoor hydroponic farm linked to an emergency food pantry in New York City. Each speaker will talk for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes for question and answers. And if there's time at the end, we'll take additional questions. Our first speaker is Jess Powers from Why Hunger. Are you there, Jess?
Thanks, Emily. So I think you guys are controlling the slides, so I'll just ask you to advance to the next one.
Perfect.
I'm going to do a quick introduction to food justice and some of the terms that people use. Some of that you may know already. Hopefully you'll learn a couple of new things. So next slide, please. So this definition of food security was the traditional definition used by the USDA, the ability of all people to access enough food at all times. And this definition got a lot of criticism over the years because it omits the role of community, it omits factors that happen in different neighborhoods, it omits any of the structural issues that might lead to people being hungry in the first place. So in response to that, next slide please, a bunch of advocates kept using the term community food security to acknowledge the role of community in having sufficient access to food. And this definition at the time was pretty radical because it also included things about community self-reliance, about social justice, and by including the term social justice in the definition, the writers were saying that we need to move beyond hunger, right? Because if we frame the issue as solely hunger, the solutions are limited. The only solutions are really providing enough food. As opposed to a social justice issue, then we start to talk about jobs, affordable housing, we start to talk about childcare, and other interrelated issues that affect people's food security. This definition also, though, got some criticism, some of it based on this term culturally acceptable, because to a lot of people that's sort of code for people of color. And we don't really talk about what's culturally acceptable food for Irish people, for example. But it also, you know, they were attempting to really emphasize the fact that different people have different preferred foods and that this was an issue in the approach to solving hunger in the U.S., that people were not paying attention to that. And also to really put nutrition forward as another important factor in food security. And again, also to put forward this idea of democratic decision making, that people have a right to make some of these decisions for themselves, and that their opinions and their voices need to be heard as part of a process of ending hunger. Next slide, please. And then other people started using the term food justice. I've heard some pushback from this term in the anti-hunger community. People are a little bit uncomfortable with the word justice, which is a little bit surprising because really what it means is something that's morally right, equitable. I think that question of equity, though, is uncomfortable for some people because then we're really talking about economic inequality, and people are afraid of maybe offending donors because some of the solutions for economic inequality might mean that they have to raise wages and things like that. But the definition of food justice really puts race at the center, and this is important in the U.S. in particular, and it's important to really think about the history that brought us to a place where we have food insecurity in a country that has so many resources to begin with. Next slide, please. Another term that's being used is the right to food. The right to food is a legal framework and a political strategy, and it's probably being used a lot more outside of the U.S. And part of the reason for that is that the U.S. hasn't really signed on to any of the international covenants on economic and social and cultural rights. But the interesting thing about the right to food is that it holds government accountable in a different way. It says that government needs to ensure that all people are able to provide for themselves in a dignified, healthy, and sustainable way. So again, we're seeing those words about dignity, health, and sustainability. Next slide, please. The concept of the right to food was really influenced by FDR. So it's interesting that we don't use the term as much in the U.S., yet we had a lot of historical influence on that term being used. When FDR gave this speech where he said freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear, he was really pointing out the tension between the American ideal of democracy that was written about in the Declaration of Independence, for example, and the reality of the U.S. and our history of slavery, and saying that people are equal or partially equal and really not, having racial inequity in our country. This also points to an agricultural system that was based on exploitation and cheap labor. And when FDR was talking about freedom from want, he was really shifting a conversation in the U.S. from being about civil and political rights, rights like voting, to also including economic and social rights. So people have a right to housing, they have a right to clean water, a right to go to school, and a right to food. Those are some of the economic and social rights. Next slide, please. So the right to food says that we need to have adequate, accessible, available, and sustainable food. And it really requires that we have a comprehensive and coordinated food and agricultural policy. So that's very different from the piecemeal policies that we have today. Next slide, please. But right to food has also been criticized because it focuses so much on government. So La Via Campesina, which is an international peasant movement, started putting forward this concept of food sovereignty as the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food, there's that term again, produced through sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. So the interesting thing about this is that it also acknowledges that there's corporate control of the food system, and we as people, as citizens, as eaters, have a right to define what our food and agricultural system should look like. So again, we're talking about sustainability, the environmental impact of a industrialized agriculture, the rights of people having sovereignty and being able to make their own decisions about food, talking again about healthy food and diet-related disease and the impacts of cheap food. And basically, this is saying that hunger cannot be distanced from all of these interrelated issues. Next slide, please. So I think what all these different definitions and different terms also points out is that there are limitations with language. This quote comes from a series that a colleague of mine did. It's called Food Justice Voices, and I have a link on the next slide to those resources. But basically, the speaker is talking about how these terms don't really necessarily resonate in communities. It's not necessarily terms that people use for themselves. But really what we're talking about, and he says, it's about improving people's lives at the core. So again, I think we come back to this concept of justice, where justice is really about improving people's lives in a variety of ways. And some people say that the term food justice is limited because it only focuses on the food aspect, and that really what we're trying to do is a broader racial, social, and economic justice movement. So I just want to point that out as one of the limitations, even though these terms can be useful. Next slide, please. And finally, just for additional resources, here are a few links. If you want to learn more about the right to food, this publication, Nourishing Change, Fulfilling the Right to Food in the U.S., is a very good one. The Right to Food and Nutrition Watch looks at this issue from the UN perspective, looks at it internationally. Food Justice Voices is a series that I mentioned earlier. And for more information about the history of emergency food and how these interrelated issues developed, here's a link to a timeline about that. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. If anybody has any questions for Jess, feel free to put them in the chat box. We did have a couple questions about whether or not the slides will be available. They will be posted on the Oregon Food Bank website, and you'll get that link in your email along with the survey after the call. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Jess about food justice or the right to food or anything else that she covered? If you do, feel free to type them in the chat box. Okay, well, we'll have, there's no questions at this time, but we'll have some more time at the end for questions. Next, we're going to hear from Shannon Cogan from Sisters of the Road. Shannon, are you there?
Hi, I am unmuted now.
Great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about what Sisters of the Road is, just to give an introduction, and then I'll go more into our food justice work every day in the cafe, and then some of our programming that we do that specifically addresses food justice in our community. So Sisters is a cafe located in the Old Town Chinatown neighborhood of Portland. We're right downtown, and we were founded in 1979, so we just had our 35th year anniversary, using a community organizing model. So our founders worked with community members in this neighborhood and talked to people about what they wanted. And our community members experiencing extreme poverty spoke of a desire to have a nutritious, hot meal in a place that had dignity and safety, and also the opportunity to trade labor for a meal, so barter working. So for the past 35 years, we have stuck to that initial community organizing model and talked to people about what they want out of our space. And we're continually talking to people and evaluating what our space looks like in order to keep it safe, welcoming, and addressing the needs of the people in our community and in this neighborhood. So the cafe is the flagship of the organization, and we're open 5 days a week. We serve meals that change every day, and we also have a meal that we've had since we opened, rice, beans, and cornbread, that the recipe has changed minimally since we opened, and it's a customer favorite. We serve about 250 to 300 people a day in the cafe, and those people pay using the barter model that was initially asked for back in 1979. Also, people can pay with cash, with food stamps, and with these special Sisters of the Road cards. And that kind of leads me into what dining with dignity and food justice looks like every day in our cafe. We believe first and foremost that we're a restaurant. So we ask people to pay for their meals and give them the dignity of knowing that they can contribute to our community in some way. And so we really try and meet folks where they're at. Over half of our meals are paid for with barter cards that people earn by doing various jobs to help the cafe run. So when you come into Sisters, you don't know who is a staff member, who is coming in to volunteer, who is barter working for a meal. It's a really just everyone working together in this awesome atmosphere of teamwork to get people their food. So that is over half of our meals are paid for with barter worker earned cards. And then people also can pay using cash. And in 1987, Sisters lobbied for a couple of years to get legislation passed so that people can pay using food stamps. This is one of the few places where you can use food stamps to buy a hot prepared meal. And that's really important to us, that we are able to offer multiple options to people so that they can eat here. So on that same line of options, we offer people choices. We have a menu, and we really think that giving people different options and not handing them something is one of the ways that we really act as a restaurant. There's a different menu every day with the specials, and then that same rice, beans, and cornbread every day that people can really rely on if they want. We try and offer vegetarian options. A lot of our food comes from local partners, so we're able to offer healthy food. We have a partnership where we glean food from Whole Foods, and Bicycle Company comes by every single morning, and they bring the food that, maybe a tomato that doesn't look absolutely pristine and beautiful comes to us, and it still tastes good and is still a great way of getting people access to healthy, nutritious food that they would not otherwise have access to. Another thing about the cafe is that we have a time slot system. So people reserve time to eat later in the day, and they know that they can come back within a half an hour period, and they will have a table to sit at and time to enjoy their food. It means that people don't have to wait in a long line and can they can plan their day around when they come in. And another thing is that we have the reservation system with time slots, and also when people come and sit down, they're served their food. We have barter jobs that are wait staff and also drink staff. So people's drinks and their food are brought to them at their table. So it's really like a restaurant in many ways. We have the menu, the choices, table service. We give people time to eat. We really believe that we're a community space. If someone doesn't want to eat our food, they can bring their food in, and we welcome anybody just spending time here. It's really about the community built, sharing food with others. So when we talk about our bigger picture food justice work, we have a number of programs that feed into that. Let me arrange my notes here. So what we really see every single day is that people earn tons of barter cards. People love coming in, working, contributing to the community, and we wanted to make those barter cards worth something outside of Sisters. So we partnered with some local people like New Seasons, which is kind of a local Whole Foods in Portland, and they support us with grants, and we are able to partner with Portland farmers markets so that the green cards that people earn by barter working can be redeemed at Portland's farmers markets. So in exchange for work in the cafe, our community members can take those green cards to Portland farmers markets and buy fresh local food, support local food systems, local farmers, and it's a really wonderful way for people to try different things. Some of our community members have tried, there's Alaskan salmon at one of the farmers markets that was really exciting for people. One of our regulars loves getting kimchi. There are all sorts of different things that people love to get. And this is just one of our ways of increasing access to those choices. It increases people's buying power and supports local farmers. So it's kind of a green card economy of sorts. Those barter cards are able to be used in other places. And we also have them available to be used in our own farm stand. So we have a farm stand every Saturday that's open in the cafe, and it is supplied with fresh fruits and vegetables that our community members have grown. So we have a garden partnership, and this garden was just a bramble and weeds and an overgrown side of the highway until probably March of this year. And our community members were going out every single weekend, clearing it away. They've been the ones deciding what gets grown. They've been the ones who are learning the skills and teaching others how to grow things out there and really make it into a wonderful, healing, beautiful space. It's amazing when you drive by. It's no longer just the overgrown side of the highway. It's actually a beautiful garden. You can always see people working out there. And we've also partnered with the Oregon Food Bank to have a gardening curriculum used for people growing things at the garden. They can learn things at the gardening curriculum classes called Seed to Supper, and then put those lessons into practice at the garden. So we really see that as skill building, as skill sharing, and as a way for our community to kind of complete this little food system we have, because everything grown at the garden comes right back into the cafe where people can purchase food using green cards, using cash, and using food stamps. And then we also have our Food for Thought forums, which similar to the garden where people have really been empowered and taken ownership of the space, at our Food for Thought forums, we have really encouraged people to tell us how we can work with them to improve their food system. We have community members who open every Food for Thought forum, which are held twice a month, with a meal that they have planned, they have shopped for, and they have prepared. And that's really a really exciting way to get people into our kitchen, and also to teach people the skills of shopping on a budget. We have a $50 budget for each forum, and we shop for about 20 to 25 people to attend. And then also for people to share their recipes that they really care about and that have some sort of emotional value to them and that they associate with their family and their friends, and giving people access to a kitchen in order to share that is really an important way of food justice as a way of building community. So we start each forum by eating together a family-style meal, and then we move into an educational section. People told us that they wanted to learn more about healthy eating, about how to shop on a budget, about what food does to one's body, how to work with allergies or with food restrictions. And so we bring in outside speakers, we work together to research different topics, and we have a little educational portion that also we make a resource out of, a pamphlet that we share with the rest of the community, the people that haven't been able to attend. And then the final portion of those meetings, the Food for Thought forums, is organizing. And so we talk to people about what they want to look different. And this year, what people told us they want to look different about their food system is simply that sisters be open different days of the week. So we're open Monday through Friday, and we've changed over the past few months to being open Tuesday through Saturday, because the people at this forum felt there was a real need for Saturdays to be available for them to eat at Sisters. So this is just another way where we use our space as a tool for community organizing, and also we as staff simply act as stewards in many ways. We ask that people tell us what they need, and we try and work with that. And we don't see ourselves as like running a space, it's co-running. And you see that in the cafe when we're all working together to get food out. And you also see it in these forums when we really ask our community to lead us in the best ways to support them. And I think those are the main prongs of our program. So we have the everyday food justice work, and then we also have those 4 or 5 different ways that we have our special programming. And I should also mention that we are able to offer healthy and delicious food in the cafe because of a number of local community partners. Portland is full of people who are super generous with us, and they bring their food to us on a regular basis. So we have our partnership with the Beeline and Whole Foods, but we also have a partnership with youth-run organic farm CSA, community-supported agriculture. So this farm nearby is run by youth from Portland, and they come and work in the cafe, and we also go out to the farm and work. And so our community members are able to go out to the farm and work and see where that food that is coming in every single day is coming from. And that's really what we're trying to do a lot of, is complete that circle of where is your food coming from, and you're getting to eat it, and like a lot of learning and participation on the part of our community members who are really excited about our food justice programming. And yeah, that's what we're working for, a local food system for everyone. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Shannon. If anybody has any questions for Shannon, please go ahead and type them into the chat box. We did have a couple questions. The first is, Shannon, can you just explain a little bit more about how your gleaning operation is working with Whole Foods and Beeline?
Yeah, so what happens is Whole Foods sets aside food that they didn't sell one day. So this morning we had boxes and boxes of packages of pre-cut fruit that just didn't sell yesterday. So it's totally fine fruit, but they want to put out new fruit every single day. So we are able to take it because Beeline will go and pick up food from Whole Foods that they didn't use for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because it has some sort of there's a blemish on a tomato like I was talking about, and so the tomato itself is actually still good, but it's not up to their standards. And so we take that food from Beeline. They're a bike delivery company, and they have a big trailer on the back of a bike. They fill it up with food from Whole Foods and then bike down here, and we kind of go through and see what we can use for the day. So today we were able to offer a side of these just so colorful fruits for people because Whole Foods made too many packages of fruit for the day. So it's really a way of reducing food waste and increasing access to healthy food for our community. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, great. So there's another question. You mentioned that everybody pays for their meal, either through paying, SNAP, or barter. Is that the full price of the meal, and is it self-sustaining, or are you accessing grants and other funds to support your operating costs?
Yeah, so that's something I neglected to touch on. So our meals, the most expensive item on our menu is $1.25, and it's been that cost since we opened. So our meals are subsidized by grants. Our operating budget is about 1.1, 1.2 million a year, and our cost of food has not changed in 35 years. So we're able, the money that we make in the cafe off of cash purchases is, oh my goodness, it's like maybe $10 or $20 a day. So it does not cover the cost of food at all. So we really try and get creative, like our Beeline partnership, with ways where we can get food. But also we have grants that make up 30% of that budget, and then 70% of our operating budget comes from individual donors. So it's a real grassroots support from our community that keeps us going.
Awesome. So Nancy from Ohio mentioned that the Ohio Association of Second Harvest Food Banks, their rules would make it actually impossible to implement a similar model. And I'm wondering, there's probably some other folks who are thinking the same thing, like that you can't ask people to do anything, you can't ask people to pay, you can't ask people to barter. And I think that would be a really interesting topic for a future call. If you have run into similar barriers, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to put something in the chat box or just email me. It's ebecker@oregonfoodbank.org. And I think that would be a really interesting topic for a future. What kinds of barriers are preventing us from doing similar projects? And then one last question for Shannon. How did you convince how did you get around the allowing food stamps for hot meals? How did you get that legislative adjustment?
Yeah, that took many years. And what happened is that it was in 1985 we began lobbying for food stamps to be used for hot meals. There was a senator, Mark Hatfield, who really supported sisters and believed in that cause. And so it failed the first time in 1985, the first time that it was brought to Congress. But then the second time in 1987, it did pass. And it's honestly just many years of hard work on the part of the people working here, and then also amazing support from our legislators, especially Senator Hatfield. That was way back in the day too, almost 20 years ago.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Shannon. We'll have some more time at the end for other questions about Sisters of the Road. Mireille, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful.
Should I start?
Yes, please do.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me to participate in this webinar. This is my first webinar as a presenter, so I'm a little nervous. But I appreciate the opportunity to share with the listeners the work my organization, which is Child Development Support Corporation, is doing in the food justice movement. Our community food pantry serves approximately 14,000 women, children, seniors, the working poor, and people with disabilities annually, from all races and ethnicities in targeted Brooklyn zip codes, like in Clinton Hill, Bedford-Stuyvesant, and Fort Greene and Brownsville. However, first-time clients come from all 5 boroughs of New York City. The largest ethnic groups we serve right now are African Americans, Hispanics, and Chinese. At our pantry, we treat clients with dignity and try to empower them by giving them information, resources, and skills to help improve their situation. We use a walk-through client choice model, which gives clients the opportunity to select their own food items based on the individual preferences, based on their individual preferences, family needs, and family size and circumstances. Through the food pantry, we also help families learn and connect to important programs that are available to them. We offer wellness workshops, free health screenings such as blood pressure monitoring. We also do job preparation and training referrals. Job preparation and training referrals, but the preparation is mostly for referrals. We help clients to make informed food choices by providing real hard facts about the state of food options available in poor Black communities. The truth is, fresh, additive-free, high-quality real food is almost non-existent or out of reasonable range in the community that I service. The ways that we can, and also we talk to them about the ways that they can help change the situation, even if it's really, really small, and that's where our food justice work comes in at. We want them to be very proactive. We do not push people to change their eating habits just because we believe it's the right thing to do.
because we're cognizant that asking people to change the way they eat, you know, it's a little bit difficult because they identify their eating habits, you know, they identify with their eating habits. All right. So we believe that constant exposure to healthy food options and opportunities to learn to grow their own food, support local farmers, and participate in food justice advocacy work, clients will learn for themselves that a healthy, functioning mind and body is dependent on good nutrition. So that's what we hope for. Like we keep exposing them to it. In our wellness, we also have wellness workshops where we discuss some of the factors that influence food choice, including economic determinants such as cost, income, availability, physical determinants such as access, education skills, like cooking, and time. We talk about social determinants such as culture, family, peers, and meal patterns, psychological ones, moods. I mean, a lot of stuff. We also talk about attitudes, beliefs, and knowledge about food. One of my favorite topics we talk about is food as oppressor, and also food as an oppressor, and also food as a liberator. But I can explain that. The food as oppressor, if people want to know, kind of like, you eat to make yourself feel good, so you're eating all this crappy stuff because you're totally stressed out and, the world is just treating you poorly. So you just take your comfort in eating food that's just going to make you sick, all right? Because most people, when they're feeling really down, they don't go for a nice, healthy salad or a fruit or something like that. They go for, the fried chicken, burgers, and French fries. But economics seems to be the primary determinant in food purchasing choice among our pantry clients, followed by the physical one, like they don't have access, to it actually. Understanding the problem is important, but helping the people address the problem is also critical. So at CDSC, at our community food pantry, we provide farm fresh organic produce using a local produce link model. This model is sponsored by the United Way of New York City and Just Food. In this model, a farmer delivers fresh produce to a hub food pantry or a soup kitchen each week during the growing season. Our growing season is June through November. On the same day, nearby spoke food pantries and soup kitchens pick up their vegetables from the hub. Participating agencies receive 3 to 4 different types of vegetables each week, totaling approximately 180 to 250 pounds. The types of produce that the pantries get, I'm just saying the pantries. I could say my pantries, but I'm just giving a general, because there's other pantries part of this local produce link. So the types of produce that food pantries and soup kitchens receive through this program vary over the course of the season and include familiar favorites such as lettuce, carrots, and tomatoes, and less common ones such as like mustard greens, kohlrabi, and leeks, and Japanese turnips. We also through the local produce link, we conduct cooking demonstrations. We take clients to farmers market tours, and on farm trips to connect with the farmer that actually grows the vegetables for our pantry. Having access to fresh produce is important, but equally important is giving clients the skills to grow their own vegetables. So what we did in 2011, we applied for a grant with United Way, the Urban Seed Grant from United Way of New York City, to build the first hydroponic farm, which is directly connected to our emergency food pantry. Oh yeah, they're showing a picture right now of one of our children harvesting. Our farm is 250 square foot. It's an indoor hydroponic farm. We grow basil, bok choy, collard greens, and multiple varieties of lettuce, giving our pantry clients an alternative to canned vegetables and unhealthy foods. The farm is under renovation right now at this time because we're trying to update to new lighting technology, and also we want to create a research lab. We have some things still growing. We also host community meals, we have clothing swaps, and we have environmental awareness days. At our pantry, we do not use plastic bags because we feel that these events help to build community and give clients an opportunity to have a positive impact, in the community, and also to just feel empowered. Like, yeah, even though I have certain situations in my life that I cannot control, but I can definitely, make a contribution to other things, okay, like, the environment. The food justice work that we do is made possible through the support of United Way of New York City, the Food Bank for New York City, Just Food, City Harvest, the Human Resources Administration, which is HRA here in New York, Emergency Food Assistance Program. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of other things that we do, but I know people may have some questions, and so I don't want to take too much more time. But in closing, I would like to share that some food for thought. I know it's excuse the pun, but some food for thought. In one of our wellness workshops, a client described our food system as food apartheid. He explained that nobody cares about what they're feeding us because they don't value us as human beings. So they assume that we are not worthy of having access to nutritious, wholesome food. This was painful to hear, but the truth is that fresh, additive-free, high-quality, real food is almost non-existent or out of reasonable range for our clients. We have to really jump through a lot of hoops to get really good stuff on a consistent basis. Okay, we would like to have the same quality foods that the folks that shop at Whole Foods get. Okay, that would be great. I understand that talking about like race or inequalities is tough because it's painful. Nonetheless, I believe that if we are to make sustainable progress in the food justice movement, the issue of structural racism must be addressed without a doubt. Well, that's pretty much all that I have to say. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mireille about the pantry or the hydroponic farm or their views on food justice? Mireille, is that you in that picture?
I'm here.
Is that you in the picture cooking?
Oh yeah, that's that's me in the picture cooking. Yes, this is me cooking outside in front of a pantry called Steinway Family Services. It's outdoors. I have a subway overhead. We try to protect the food, nothing falls into it. But this is really hardcore. Like, go out there and just bring this information to the people because I was introducing Japanese radishes to a group of pantry clients that never had it before. So I go wherever and do whatever it takes to get this information out there. But once I do the demo, then the clients say to me, well, where can I get them? And I'm like, well, you'll get them here, through the local produce bank program. But then they're like, well, where can I get them after that? Well, then that's where the problem comes in at. I have no solution, no answer for that because they won't be able to afford this organic Japanese radish on their own. But they're still being introduced to it, which is a good thing because they know that it exists. So which makes it difficult sometimes when you say to them, look what's out there, look what other folks are eating, but you get to taste it, for a season. So, yeah.
Great. Mireille, does your organization do any advocacy or lobbying work or anything policy focused?
We're a nonprofit organization, so a lot of the work that we do, if it's that kind of lobbying, we go through our own food bank. Like we support whatever work that they're doing. We support the work United Way is doing, but we ourselves don't do any kind of lobbying. I don't think we're allowed to.
Cool.
One of our funding sources, no.
Another question is, do you operate in one central location or do you have various community spaces?
We operate in one central location, but the Community Chef program travels all over. So we actually take the information to the people in other locations, but our central, where we do have the client choice and the hydroponic farm, it's located in our building, one central location. Yeah.
Great. I have another question. It is, what do you find helpful in engaging your patrons and community members in your programs that focus on more personal and psychological wellness? What do you find useful in facilitating those conversations?
Well, I mean, for me, what we found useful is when we have the wellness workshops is to allow the clients what I just that I shared with you, a client talking about food of Popeye, is to really get off their chest whatever they feel that it's that's bothering them, and we tell them that this is a safe space, and they can pretty much just speak up and say whatever they feel, and most of the time we, you know, it just gives them release that yeah, we get it. When you go to the bodega, which is where most of the people are shopping, you only have potatoes and onion and lemon, and sometimes an onion, and people are frustrated with that. They're like, no, we want some real good quality stuff. And then they go, well, when the good quality stuff comes to us, we cannot afford it. And then so people judge them because they think they're not making the right choice, because it's them not choosing to make the right choice, as opposed to them not really having the resources to make the right choice. So when you're going, so dealing with the psychological stresses and all of that, we have just allowed them to just speak up, and then they have support from other people that are in the community that get it. They get it. They get that, yeah, you're not crazy. This is really happening. You don't have access to this high quality stuff, and even if it's in your face right down the block from your house, you cannot afford it. And a lot of the markets that are coming up in our community right now is using this using organic as a way to say you cannot come in here to afford these prices. And it's true, some of the stuff is like extremely expensive. So how we work with them, that we just give them an opportunity to share their experiences. We give them an opportunity to talk, and also we introduce them to certain fruit juices, or certain fruits, or certain vegetables like celery that can just like bring down your stress level, calm you down. So we try to do the best we can. That's what we do.
Great. I think probably a lot of folks on this call are from organizations that might not necessarily have a racial justice or food justice lens, but they themselves do personally. Do you have any advice for folks who want to bring a racial focus or a racial lens to organizations that haven't historically done any work around race?
Well, as I mentioned in my closing remark, is I think being willing to look at it critically and to talk about it and to put it on the table, no matter how difficult it is or how much it hurts, denial is not going to solve the problem. It's like, listen, let's look at this picture. Let's start talking about it. Let's see how it's really affecting people. And let's be honest, about it. Structural racism is real, and it exists, and it's affecting a lot of things. It affects people in so many different ways. It affects the food system. It affects the educational system, the housing system, our relationship with the police. It affects everything. So if we're not willing to sit back and have that discussion, at least up front, in a room with all people, black people, white people, Chinese people, people of everybody, all of us in the room saying, look, we have a problem, and this is what the problem is. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of it so that we can, make things better for all. I think that's what I would say. I would say first you got to acknowledge it exists, for real. You got to acknowledge it exists, and then after that, you're gonna have to start to see, how can you start to break some of that stuff down. That's my advice.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question for you, Mire.
Wait, I just want just one moment. I just want to make it clear. Now we're at the part of this conversation where I'm speaking as Mireille, not as Child Development Support Corporation. These are like my views and my opinion.
Got it.
Okay.
Mireille is really the brilliant person and not the Child Development person. So someone asked if your cooking demonstrations are usually vegetarian or vegan, and if there's any talk about vegetarianism or veganism in your work.
That's a great question. The cooking demos are vegetarian and vegan because that's what we have, because we're not cooking meat or dairy or anything like that, because the program is called Local Produce Link only provides us with fruits and vegetables. So in that sense, and we also don't add anything to the fruits and vegetable when we're cooking, like meat and dairy because we're preparing the food outside. So we're also concerned for safety. Food safety is a big issue. So we don't carry any kind of items that might, potentially cause any kind of hazard. Yeah, so it's mostly we're just demonstrating the produce, vegetables, and vegetarianism and veganism. Those are conversations that we do have because we think that they're important to have, and just because someone is poor or not exposed to a lot of different things, that they should not have this information. So if that's a healthy eating option, we offer that as well. We talk about it all the time. At our pantry, as a matter of fact, we have a one day a month where we don't bring out the salmon, we don't bring out the chicken, we don't bring out any meat or anything like that. So we have like a vegetarian day, and then there's a conversation that starts around vegetarianism. What is it? Don't you need your protein? There's always a protein issue, and then we talk about no, you get plenty of protein. Trust me, by eating all other protein sources. It's not just meat. So we have that type of conversation. And people really get into it, which is good. The veganism, that one we talk about as well, but that's not one that's going over well because people say, like, look, if I can't have the meat, I want to have at least the cheese and the milk and the eggs. But we do put it out there on the table. I mean, right now, the people are talking about raw veganism, which is a little extreme for some people, but it's still a health eating option that's out there that we want to expose them to that as well. I think they should get all the information that's available to everybody else. Why shouldn't they get it?
Awesome.
That's the answer to that.
Thanks. So we have a few more minutes to take questions for Jess, Shannon, or Marie. We did have one from Daniel from Mazone. He's really interested in learning more about what advocacy priorities you see in the coming months. All of you have basically mentioned that a lot of these problems are structural in nature. It's not an individual's fault, and one way we can address those is through advocating through our governments, local and federal. Are there any issues that you all are working on related to policy?
Well, not me. I mean, no. In terms of CDSC right now, like I said, most of our policy work we do is pertaining to child care. It's pertaining to child care, but food policy-wise, we leave that to our food bank. We just really get on board with a lot of the things that they support. We support as well.
Shannon or Jess, did you have any thoughts about advocacy or policy issues? And you'll have to unmute yourselves.
Hi, this is Shannon. We do some advocacy and support of the Western Regional Advocacy Project, which is supporting the Homeless Bill of Rights, which is really about a lot of our community members not being harassed for simply living outside. But we do not do any direct food advocacy work right now. Yeah, we're really focusing on our community, and it's pretty small right now. Not small, but we're keeping it focused in a local community space and have not had the capacity to go outside of that for legislation or lobbying, things like that.
This is Jess. We're in a unique position because we're a national organization and we work with food banks and food pantries around the country. And one of the things that we keep hearing about is, how do we get involved in different policy issues besides the sort of traditional anti-hunger space of supporting the different government nutrition programs. So we're actually building out some resources about that right now, kind of connecting people to different groups that are doing work around childcare, that are doing work around the Fight for 15 or livable wages. And and people who are doing work around housing, those sort of interrelated issues that affect people who are living in poverty. So more to come on that from us.
Great. I'll just throw it out there that at the Oregon Food Bank, through our community organizing efforts, we heard repeatedly from rural communities that there was a lack of stores in general, but especially places to buy bread and baked goods. And so we were able to get legislation passed just this season that allows for people to bake bread and other low-risk foods in their homes without getting their home kitchens licensed as commercial kitchens, and then to be able to sell direct to their neighbors. And so that has the potential to both increase food security in various areas, or increase food access, and also help to build wealth in very poor rural communities. We have a follow-up question on advocacy, and someone asked or mentioned that it's a real challenge to get agencies and clients of agencies involved in advocacy efforts. They say, I am planning an advocacy training institute and would like advice on how to get more agency involvement and what agencies and clients would like to learn. Jess, Shannon, and Mireille, do you guys have any ideas about how to get agency clients and agencies involved in advocacy work?
Well, this is Mireille. I know that for us it was a little difficult to get clients in, just even to start talking about, issues. They were just like, oh, just give me the food. But now it's different, because they realize that they really have to be part of the solution. So for us, it's like before every pantry, aside from our wellness workshops that we do, but before every pantry, I talk about the importance of getting involved, the need to getting involved, or if the food bank is doing something, or if United Way needs some kind of letter of support, or needs us to sign a petition or whatever it is, I just get them involved, and I just keep telling them, this is for you, this is for us, this is what needs to happen, and we need to be part of the solution. And I just keep reinforcing it over and over and over. That's how I get them involved.
And I would say at Sisters, what we do, and we have this conversation a lot, because we want to be a place where sometimes people just come in and they simply just want to eat, and that's what they need at the moment. But also people have greater needs, and the systemic problems need to be addressed. And what we do, and when we're trying to get people involved in something, is really think about what barriers there are to people coming. So when we have a conversation after hours, we have food there. Or if we want people to maybe go to a talk or something like that, we think about transportation and really try and eliminate those barriers, and also make sure that we are having those conversations like Mireille is having, it sounds like, with people just one-on-one basis, asking people what they care about and what they're interested in, and really being directed by that, and trying to meet people where they're at and what they have access to. So definitely barriers, and definitely continuing conversations with folks.
And this is Jess. Those are all great suggestions. We have a publication that's coming out in a couple of months about food pantries that are doing organizing with participants of their programs. It's not every single organization that does that, but we profile a few organizations who we work with who do. And I think the people who are most successful have some sort of community meeting, family meeting, where they ask people what their advocacy or priorities are. And often those meetings consist of, things within the pantry that they would like to be improved, and also real life things that are affecting people. So, for example, Neighbors Together in Brooklyn does this. They have an organizer on staff, and the participants in their program were talking about three-quarter housing being an issue, which is transitional housing for people, and people were being evicted, even illegally evicted. And so they started educating local police departments about their rights. They were part of a group of people who got some legislation passed in New York City to protect people who are residents of three-quarter houses. So, that to the participants of the program was of a much higher priority than, for example, the amount of money that they get for SNAP. So I think the real important thing is to ask people what the priorities are. That pantry also does a training program where people who want to get involved with advocacy learn about civics, leadership development, public speaking, and also like food justice and different issues. And the other thing that I hear often from pantries or agencies that want to do advocacy but really maybe don't have a lot of space to create programming, that the type of support that they could use is somebody really kind of telling them, okay, this is something we need you to sign on about, this is something that should be a priority. Really just having a food bank or provide people with kind of a toolkit or email reminders when there's an important issue that they need to advocate for. That it's a little difficult for a lot of agencies to put staff time behind keeping up with all that stuff. So that's the type of support I hear that people need.
Excellent. Well, that's all of our questions. Do any of the presenters have any closing comments or final thoughts? Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us today and for your excellent questions. We'll be sending you an email shortly with a link to a survey. Please do finish that, take that survey. I think it's 5 questions. And after you complete the survey, we'll be asking you to take the pledge to help us close the hunger gap. It is entirely optional, but you'll see it there. And it's a way to pledge your support or your organization's support to help us to move towards strong community food systems and hopefully towards food justice. Thanks again, and feel free to contact me, Emily Becker, or any of our panelists if you have any further questions. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.